Hi there, this is Cindy from the Paper Studio, and today we're going to work with how to case in a photo album. A lot of folks have used our inserts, but this is a photo album, and it's a little bit bigger in terms of the spine, and how you case it in is a little bit different. So I'm going to demonstrate that. We have two different kinds. This one has the little sleeves, so you just insert it. So you can get a finished book that looks like this, and then you just put your 4x6 photos in. The second kind of album we have is like this. It's bigger. We have different sizes. But what the key is with that is it has the glycine pages, the overlays, which a lot of people like. You can put your photos anywhere on the page, and then you have this nice little glycine overlay. The way you case them in is the same for if you use the ones that are sleeve or the glycine. So we're going to go ahead and get started. So I'm going to do one of the small ones. So the thing you need is you need 2 pieces of book board for your covers, and then you need to have something to kind of support the spine. This is called Peach Flex, and it's just a strong but malleable piece of paper that's going to go behind the spine so that it rides nicely, because you don't want the headband to show through the book cloth. So we're going to go ahead and start. I'm going to walk through how do you calculate what size materials you need. The book board is the same width as the photo album, but it's about 1/4 inch taller than the photo album, so it can buffer it on both sides, top and bottom. To determine how much room to leave for your spine, you're going to need to measure with a ruler. This has got picas and all kinds of stuff on here. So these are about 1 3/4 inches. So I know I need that much room, and then you need to leave, it's either called a gutter, you need to leave a space so that the book can open. So a good rule is about 1/4 inch on each side. So I know I have 1 3/4 inches plus 1/4 inch on each side, which is 2 1/4 inches. So that's about all the math you'll have to do. So, okay, so let's get started. The first thing you're going to do is take your spine piece, and I made it 5 inches wide, and it's 1.5 inches taller than my book. So I have a 3/4 inch wrap around. So the first thing I do is I pinch it at the top and in the bottom. I'm not creasing it all the way, I'm just pinching it. And what you're going to do next is draw a line from where you pinched it. That gives you your center mark. I believe in using jigs and such. It's just easier. Now, when you're going to take this, you need to have some sort of piece. It could be a flexible, like a cardstock or some sort of paper. Again, this is a Peach Flex. It's a little denser and stronger. So I just did a pinch and a pinch, and then I drew the center line. And now you'll see why that makes sense. So I'm going to put a little glue on this. And again, this pink thing is what kind of buffers your book cloth from the end bands and such that are on the spine of the photo album. So now I'm going to line up center to center. It just makes things easier if you create these little marks and jigs. It might seem like a headache measuring, but it's not so bad. So the next thing I'm going to do, I'm going to take a brass, and I want to leave about 1/4 inch space between the spine, and this is for your gutter, they call it, because this is what helps your book flex when you open it. So I drew that, and the other thing I'm going to do is I'm going to take my book board, I'm going to draw one more line. I'm just laying it on top. I'm just centering kind of top and bottom. This is just going to help me know where exactly I want to glue. So I'm making a mark like that. So there's all my marks are made. I'm going to glue this piece here for my board. I need to stay out of here, the gutter, and I'm not going to glue the top and bottom yet. So I'm just going to put a little glue on. And again, when you glue, you want to glue from the center up, center down, center out. Okay. And it's all right if you get a little glue in there. I mean, you don't have to worry about it, but we don't want to saturate the gutter with glue. I'm going to place my board, and I'm going to push down so to make sure that it is well formed on there. I use my hand. I don't use a bone folder, and you don't want to burnish book cloth with a bone folder unless you have a Teflon bone folder, otherwise you'll leave shiny marks. Now I'm going to do the same thing with the other side. Okay, so now I have both of my book boards glued to the book cloth. I'm going to fold over the top and the bottom, which are the head and the tail. Glue. You don't need a lot of glue, but you need enough to make sure the book cloth gets glued down nicely. but you don't need, you know, to make it super sloshy or have the glue spooging everywhere. And again, I can't emphasize enough, glue from the center out. Okay, now it's actually starting to look like a little case for a book, and you kind of have to work that book cloth down. You want it to be nice and tight over the book board. So now you can actually take your insert and check to see how it fits. You want to make sure it fits. Okay, I'm happy with the way that fits in there. Okay, so the next thing we're going to do is we're going to put on our decorative paper. We're going to glue it up to the book cloth. I always glue the paper, not the board, because your paper starts to expand the minute it gets wet. So if you glued the board, wherever the paper starts touching the board, it's going to start expanding. And the parts that are still dry, that are not touching the board, are going to kind of shrink and contract. So it's just easier if you glue the paper, and just kind of keep that in mind. Okay, I'm going to just place this right on here. I'm going to overlap my book cloth just a little bit. Make sure it looks straight, top and bottom. Okay. Okay, you're going to do your corners. You can cut off with scissors. I'm just going to use an X-Acto knife. You need to cut off 2 board thicknesses. And to help you get good, just make a little jig of 2 board thicknesses and then use that as a guide to know where to cut, because you don't want to cut off too much. You'll get a gap. If you cut off too little, you'll get kind of too much paper in there. To do your corners, you want to do a little slide in. It's going to pull in your corners, and then you're going to fold over. It's kind of fold it down. It gives you nice, perfect library corners. So then that's your one side. I love yellow and gray. It's so popular right now. Now I'm going to do my other side as well. Okay, so now I have my cover is done. The last step in this is I just need to set my book. The last step only is and make my insert be glued to finish off the book. So what you do is you want to set your insert in there, and then you know want to get it aligned top and bottom so that it's sitting kind of in the middle. Okay, and you'll see that the edges of the book will sit in that little gutter space that you created. So I'm happy with that. So now I'm going to glue it out. If you are not comfortable with gluing, you want to put some extra papers around so to catch the glue, because if you're new to gluing, you definitely want to keep the glue off of the papers below it. So I'm going to glue. So I've glued that. I like the alignment top and bottom. You have to kind of bring the case up and over, and then you're going to push so the book sits back. The other thing you want to make sure is that sometimes the insert can kind of slide around a little bit. So I want to make sure it's sitting nice and correct. As long as you haven't pushed down and smooth, you have time to move things, because I want the insert to sit correctly on both sides. Looks nice and even. Okay, so then I'm going to open it up. I'm going to smooth it down with my hand. And again, I tend to do that rather than use a bone folder, because then I can feel like if there's any lumps and such. So now I'm happy with that. Now I've got my book. It's all cased in. It really needs to sit for 24 hours before I do anything with it. If I did one side and came back the next day, I would let it sit a full 24 hours before I started using it. But because I did both sides kind of simultaneously, I'm going to open it up. And you have to kind of press it down, because it's pretty strong paper on the sides that will want to kind of lift up. So I'm going to set it like this. I'm going to put wax paper on top, and I'm actually going to lay some books on top for weight. So I'm going to leave it open like this and let it dry for 24 hours. All right, thanks.